In 2022, I released a video about installing Klipper / Mainsail on an Orange Pi, specifically the Orange Pi Zero2. That was almost a year ago, and in that time, I've really become a lot more comfortable and knowledgeable on Klipper, having installed it on both of my printers, and I feel it's owed to you guys that I release an update video. I'm essentially going to be pretty much redoing everything to make it more stable and just a better experience. So anyway, this is the same printer actually as what you saw last time. It's very different. It's now an Ender Extender 400 by 400. I have it torn down. I'm fitting some linear rails later this week on the y-axis, but it's the same Orange Pi Zero. So in this video, we're going to be going through a more updated version of how to do this for a more stable result and a better experience, and hopefully a lot shorter of a video. So stay tuned. We're going to get into it. So to get started, you're most obviously going to need an Orange Pi. In my case, again, it's an Orange Pi Zero2. I found this is more than sufficient to run Klipper. You're also going to need a SD card. Maybe you already have one. I recommend at least a 16 or a 32 gigabyte card, not because it takes up that much space, but for longevity. If you have a smaller card, I want to call them sectors, but I know that's more of a reference to older spinning hard drives, but maybe you know what I mean. It gets written and written and written and read and read and read, and the card fatigues out faster the smaller it is. So with a larger card, again, 16, 32 gig, or probably about right, it's just going to last longer. Just spend the extra $3 and thank me later. And then obviously some way to read this card from your computer. I'm just using a USB to micro SD adapter. What we're going to do is first start with a card, and we're going to go over to the laptop and flash an image. And I'll show you which one just in a second. So our first order of business will be to download an operating system image to flash onto that SD card. And in the last video, I used Armbian, and at the time that made a lot of sense because there was a lot of overlap and similarity with Raspbian, obviously the Raspberry Pi operating system. So I reckon that was a good place to start. And in the last year, I found that there were some stability issues. It just wasn't really the best. So what I'm sharing with you today is Debian, or Debian, however you pronounce it. So I found the best option, path of least resistance, was actually just to get it right from the Orange Pi website. So I just Googled Orange Pi Zero2, head over to the downloads section. We're going to click on Debian Images. And there's going to be a few options here on this Google Drive link. These first two are Buster. So Debian Buster Desktop, if we hover over it, and Debian Buster Server. The difference being, I'm assuming, mostly the graphical interface. The server version is going to be command line, which is all we need. We don't need the graphical front end slowing everything down and using up CPU cycles when it's not adding any value. The other two here, so this is Bullseye Desktop, and this one is Bullseye Server. I'm going to say Buster. Buster, I believe, is 2018-ish. It's just more stable. Bullseye is just kind of new. A lot of the software from the last few years has been a little bit too buggy for me. So just get the Buster one. I'm saying that because I'm already actually running it, and I can tell you already that it works perfectly fine. It's stable. You're not going to have any problems. So just grab this guy. Once we have that, so let me go to my downloads. I've got it extracted right here. It's going to be an IMG file. Let's go over to Balena Etcher. I'm just going to go ahead and flash from file. Here it is right here. Debian Buster Server. I'm going to go ahead and select my my new SD card. This is hand on my heart the first time that I've flashed it. Hopefully this is a one-take video. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here because it's going to take about 5 or 10 minutes, I think. Anyway, I'll catch up with you after this is done flashing. The next step is going to be to plug in the Orange Pi to Ethernet. For a lot of us, the easiest thing is going to just be to connect to the back of your router. I've just got mine plugged into one of the spare ports on the back. And after you put your SD card in, let's go ahead and power it on. We're going to be looking for this LED to go to green. This is one take for me, so I'm really hoping it... there it goes, okay. So if you don't get an LED at all, or if yours never turns green, there's probably an issue somewhere with your SD card, or maybe the way that you flashed it, something went wrong, or maybe it's not getting the full voltage from the USB-C cable. But in our case right now, that's good. So let's go back over to the computer. We're going to log into it over SSH and start getting this configured and ready to install Klipper on. So back at the computer, I've opened up my router, and I can now see all the devices on my network, and I can see orange Pi Zero2, which can only mean one thing, and I have the IP address for it. I know that a lot of you have a different router, and I'm not going to get into how to get into your specific router. If you don't know how to get to where I am right now on your router, please just pause the video and find a tutorial or some other kind of guide on how to do that. It's going to be very important that you can identify your device and get the IP address before you go any further than this. So now that I know what mine is, in my specific case, it's 10.0.1.1.10. We can go to our SSH client. And because I'm on take 2 of this video, because I messed up, I've actually already logged into it. So when you log in, the password is going to be Orange Pi, no spaces, all lowercase. Username is going to be root as you first log in. When you log in, you're going to be greeted with just the directory structure here. And then I open a terminal, and as you can see, I'm root at Orange Pi Zero2. As far as initial configuration, I've actually made an Excel file here, which will be in the description down below. And this has every single terminal command that you can copy and paste as we go along. And we'll start at the top, the initial setup. So first, let's change the root password. It's just PASSWD in DB in here. So if I do that, we can change our password so that it's something that's not Orange Pi, which is a security thing. Next, we're going to add a user named Pi. So we don't want to do everything from the root user account. That's really dangerous. You need to have a different user account, and everything in the Klipper environment expects a user named Pi because that's how it's typically set up. So we're going to do add user Pi, and I'm not going to do it because I actually already did it off camera, but just take my word for it. Just type add user Pi or copy and paste this. Once you do that, if you go back into your SSH kind of file explorer here, under home you'll see a user named Pi now. Back in our spreadsheet, we need to actually give Pi some permission. So right now, Pi is not an admin account. He's just an ordinary user, so we need to add him to the sudoers group. In other words, he can execute things as an admin. So we're going to copy and paste this command here. I forget if I already got this far in my last take. But let's go ahead and, just for good measure, copy and paste that right in. So he is now in the sudo group. And then this last one is a default user named Orange Pi that exists on the Orange Pi Debian image that we downloaded from that Google Drive link. I don't think there's anything sketchy about that because they're probably just doing it to help you get started, but I don't trust anybody anymore, especially over the internet. So just for security measures, let's do delete user Orange Pi. We've already created a user named Pi, so this is just an extra account that's not adding any value. So I'm just going to copy and paste that. Now I've already deleted that guy from my Orange Pi, so I'm not going to redo it. But go ahead and do that on yours. And I'm going to go ahead and pause the video now because my screen recording software probably only lasts for a few minutes. So I'll see you in just a few seconds. So with that done, next step, let's get on our Wi-Fi. So right now we're on the Ethernet, but most of us are going to want to use our Wi-Fi if we have one. So our next line here is NMTUI, which is the network manager. If we type that in, we get this screen. Let's do edit a connection. As you can see, we have wire connection 1, which is obviously the Ethernet. Let's do add, and then choose Wi-Fi. Press enter. I guess I'm just going to go to SSID. Now, you just manually type in your Wi-Fi name that you want to use. Mine is called Merlin. Security. Mine is WPA2. And then just type in your... Actually, I think I typoed that. type in your password. And then from here, scroll down to the bottom. These two are important to make sure that they're checked. So automatically connect, available to all users. Yes and yes, they should be both yes by default. And press OK. Sure enough, we now have that there. So let's go back, activate a connection, and let's see. Looks like that's already it's already connected right there. The little asterisk is illuminated, so we're in good shape. Looks like we're on the Wi-Fi. And then set system hostname. This is your chance to call it something else. Because my printer is the Ender extender, I usually, this is going to be a little bit immature, but I have a certain name for my printer. Yeah, deal with it. Okay. Okay, got it. Thanks. Quit. All right. Next command is, sorry for that, guys. Next command is set our time zone. This is just so that the system clock is synchronized and everything. I live in Central Time Zone here in the US, so I'm just going to copy and paste this. Where it says America/Monterey, you can get on Google and find, there's a lot of, obviously, other time zones that exist, so just replace that with your time zone. It's all on the internet for you to find. I'm just going to do that. And then I'm just going to confirm that by typing date. So that's correct. This matches the top of my computer right up here in the top right. So great. We're in good shape. Next step. Let's update the operating system itself. Before we get into installing Klipper, we need to make sure that the actual Debian installation is up to date and ready to go. Let's first start by looking at our sources.list file. And you might be thinking, okay, we're kind of going off track a little bit here, Michael, but just trust me. So when you do this, these are a bunch of Chinese mirrors. Now, I'm not here to say that anything's wrong with this. I'm sure they're perfectly fine, but I want to switch these back to the actual Debian servers. I don't know why they've been changed to these .edu.cn servers. It doesn't make sense to me. They had to go out of their way to change this, so I'm just going to, you can see my little cursor here. I'm just going to do Control K at the beginning of every line. Just clear all that crap out. In this Excel file, I've put the correct sources that Debian would have had, I guess, originally. I'm just going to copy that right back into the Nano window and do paste. And there it all is. I'm going to do Control X. Save modified buffer. I'm going to click Y for yes. Sources.list. Overwrite. Voila. Now, we're going to do apt update, apt upgrade, which if you ever use Linux, you'll be familiar with. So I'm going to start the process here and then let that do its thing. It's going to take a few minutes, so I'm going to stop the video recording and come back when we're done. So if everything went well for you, you should have had a really long list of upgraded packages here. Anyway, I'm just going to clear all that out. So at the moment we're obviously logged in as root. You can see that here. We need to switch to the Pi environment. So we're going to do su Pi. So we just changed to the Pi account. We need this because we want Klipper and Mainsail and all that to be installed from the Pi account. If we install it from root, there might be an issue with it being accessible from Pi, especially in the Python environment. So now that we're within Pi, we can actually get into installing Klipper and all that. In my original video, we went through this whole process of manually copying and pasting a ton of commands and doing a manual installation, and I did not really know about Klipper Installation and Update Helper, aka KIAUH, K-I-A-U-H, the acronym right there. This is amazing, and I kind of feel dumb for not knowing about it. So I'm going to try and right that wrong by putting it in my video now. Let's go ahead and kick that off. So the first command is going to be to change directory into default, which we may already be in, but just to be safe, yeah, there we go. We're going to type that in, and that gets us started. We're going to start by copying the repository here into that folder. So it's just a simple matter of copying and pasting this command. Let's go paste. Pretty quick. And then we're going to launch the KIAUH script. So copy and paste that next one. And it should bring up this menu here. Let me go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. So we have a few options. On the right side of the prompt, we can see Klipper not installed, Moonraker nothing's installed. So let's do 1 to start installing stuff. And from here, we're going to just go in order. So first, let's install Klipper. When that's done installing, we're going to change it to 2 to install Moonraker, so on and so forth. I'm going to just start with Klipper. I believe it takes a few minutes, so I'm not going to record the whole process, but select Python version. With this Debian image, once we've updated it, we should be good to go on Python 3, so just keep it at 1. Number of instances to set up. And for most of us, that's going to be 1 instance. If you have 2 or 3 or whatever, then here's your chance to change that. So now it's going to start doing its installation process just for Klipper. I'm going to cut the video here and we'll come back. So Klipper has just been installed. Everything went through just fine. That's the beauty of KIAUH, is that it automatically installs all your dependencies for you. So at this point, now we're back to the main menu. It brought us right back here by itself. We're going to click 2 to install Moonraker. We're going to see a very similar process. Again, you can see it checking for dependencies, and those that are not there, it goes ahead and grabs them for you. And I'm going to stop the video because it's going to be pretty boring if I don't. So now we've checked off Klipper and Moonraker, so now it's time to choose a Klipper web interface. I personally am using Mainsail. You know, pick Fluid if you want to use Fluid. No, we'll do the same thing. We're just going to wait for it to go through. So now we have Klipper, Moonraker, and Mainsail installed. And at this point, if you want to install anything else, you can. So Klipper screen, if you have a touchscreen or some kind of third-party LCD for your Klipper installation, you can install it really quickly right now. Here's your chance. Same with Octoprint. I'm not going to be using that. Again, I'm just using straight up Mainsail. And then there's some other ones here, Pretty G-Code, Telegram Bot, and Obico, which I've never used any of them, but again, they're there if you want to install them. However, I am going to install Crow's Nest. Now, in previous versions of Klipper, you would have something called mjpegs-streamer, and this would interface a webcam if you had one installed, and it would stream it to Mainsail or wherever, whatever you're using, Mobile Raker, any kind of external API for Moonraker like that. In the newer versions of Klipper, we need to install Crow's Nest. This is a replacement now to interface with your webcam. So if you have a webcam, just install Crow's Nest. And I found that it's actually a lot smoother than mjpeg streamer was as far as frame rates. So I'm not even mad. It seems to be working really well on both of my printers. So I'm going to let this do its thing, and we will reconvene when that's done. So we just finished installing Crow's Nest, and it's asking me if I want to reboot now. We're going to have to do yes. And while that's rebooting, let's kind of look forward into the next few commands. So let's get out of that. We've gone through the whole KIAUH process, and now we're going to have to go into actually getting the Klipper firmware prepared. The good news is, at this point, it's no different than any other Klipper tutorial that you've ever read, where you go to the Klipper directory, you're going to do make menu config, make blah blah blah. I'm not going to really spend too much time on that because, again, it's pretty standard. There's nothing unique about the Orange Pi now that we have everything installed. But we're not done yet because there are a few more caveats that we're going to need to go through. But just for completeness, let's go in. Hopefully it's done rebooting by now. Let me refresh. Authenticating is root. Yeah, it's still kind of booting up, but let's log in as Pi with our new password. I think it's still booting up here, so yeah, there we go. Now we're logged in. Open a terminal. It always asks me to log in once I'm in the terminal. Now, let's go through just for, again, completeness. Let's just show everybody how easy it is to do this. So cd Klipper, and we're going to do make menu config, and you'll get into this menu here, and depending on your actual mainboard, you're going to configure all this stuff. So in my case, I have an SKR Mini, so it's this guy. I believe in my case it's the G0B1. 8 kilobit bootloader is correct. This is correct. USB is correct. Okay, quit. Yes. Type make. Sorry if I'm speeding through it, guys, but it's literally on the Klipper main documentation that's on their official website. So this is literally a simple matter of letting it compile, and then once that's done, we can copy that bin file. And if you have an older printer with an 8-bit board, it might be a .hex file, and you're on your own for that. Good luck with the whole bootloader thing. But it's just going to be a simple matter of flashing this firmware to our main board now, if it's not already done. So it should be just about done. There it goes. Again, if I go back here, I'm going to click refresh on CyberDuck. If I come down to Pi, and then under Klipper, there's a folder called out. Here it is. Sure enough, klipper.bin from 7:45 p.m. That's right now. I can go ahead and just download that right onto my SD card and flash that the way that you would flash your any other mainboard flash that you're doing. So let's move right on. Now let's confirm that we're connected to the printer. Now to do this, at the moment, my Orange Pi is actually still connected to my router. So now what we're going to do is actually physically install the Orange Pi onto the 3D printer. We're going to plug in the USB connection to the main board and do all that. So when that's done, I'm going to come right back. The Orange Pi is now installed back on my 3D printer. And if you guys are interested in this case design, it is on my printables page, link in the description. I cannot take credit for the main part of the case. I remixed it, but I can take credit for this little mount at the bottom. It uses two M3 T-nuts to go anywhere on any extrusion that you want to put it into. So I've got the USB-C power connected, which goes to my little 24 to 5 volt step down. And then of course I've got the USB communications. This goes to a USB hub that I have stuck on the side. There are two USB appliances on that hub. One is my webcam, a Logitech C205, and the other one is of course the main board itself. I've got a little 90-degree adapter, and then the USB goes right in the front as it would on any other Ender 3 style printer. With that done, cut the printer on, and let's go back to our SSH client and confirm that the Orange Pi and mainboard can see each other. I'm back here at my router, and I've just gone ahead and refreshed my active devices, and I can see my printer is now here again with a different IP address because we're on the Wi-Fi. When you switch between Ethernet and Wi-Fi, you're going to usually have a different MAC address because it's a different interface. So in this case, take note of the new IP address. Before mine was .110, you can see it actually just below it, but now on the Wi-Fi it's .9 instead of .110. This is a good chance to add it as a static IP address, and I can't tell you how to do this for every router because every router is a little bit different, but you know, use Google, figure it out. Static DHCP entries, for me it's really obvious. It's on the left hand side of my screen. And as you can see, I've added this as a static IP entry so that every time that my Orange Pi connects over Wi-Fi from this MAC address, which it will for the rest of the life cycle of this Orange Pi, it's going to get the same IP address every time, and I can always log into it and get onto Mainsail with this one IP address. So in either case, we're just going to copy that, SSH into it using the new IP address. Again, we're completely on Wi-Fi now. We are off the Ethernet. So I've already logged in. I'm going to open a terminal and we can carry on with the command list. So back over here on our spreadsheet, this next command is going to be a probe to just get the USB ID of the main board, assuming that it can see it. So if we run this command and it comes back with some kind of message saying that nothing was there, then something's probably wrong with the USB cable between the two, or I don't know, something else. Hopefully it's not that. Hopefully it's a problem with the USB cable, because otherwise you're kind of in trouble. But when I run it, there we go, boom. This is my SKR Mini E3v3. I've already flashed my firmware.bin file onto it. You can see it here. Please don't copy mine, because yours is probably going to be different. That's why you have to run this command for yourself. And once this is done, this serves two purposes. The first purpose is, as we said, it confirms that the Orange Pi can see the main board. But the second purpose is that we're going to need to copy this for later for our Klipper config, because you need to copy and paste this into your printer.cfg file under the MCU section. So just go ahead and copy and paste this again into, TextPad, Notepad, whatever. Stash it away for later. So if you have this, we're in good shape. We can move on. Now what we're going to want to do is let's confirm that we can get into Klipper/Mainsail. So in my case, we are 10.0.1.9. Now mine is probably going to work right away because of my IP address space. So yeah, sure enough, so I'm in Mainsail. Let's not worry about the errors for now. We're going to come back and deal with that here in a few minutes. But if yours doesn't work, you're going to want to go back into the command list here, and we're going to edit the moonraker.conf file and allow people on your network to access it, people like you. So right here, once I get into the moonraker.conf file, under authorization you can see trusted clients. Now on mine I've got a lot of 10.0. whatever, and that's probably why I'm okay. However, mine is 0.1. So I'm going to defer you to the official Mainsail installation for how to set this up, but I'll show you a quick example. So 192.168 is probably what your IP address is going to be starting with, so 192.168.0 something. So this last digit is free, so just leave it as 0.0. As long as the first three, out of the four sections are correct, it's fine. It should always be a 0.0 as the very last digit. And then we're going to change the subnet mask to -24, and that allows you to access it from a typical IPv4 address space. And if all that sounded like a different language, don't worry, just do what I do. 192.168, 0.0-24. Just for redundancy, I'm going to do the same thing, only I'm going to do 192.168.1.0-24, because sometimes your router is set up with either 1.0 or 0. something, whatever. So if you do both of these, you're probably going to be set. For me, my subnet from my server is in the 10.0.1.x space, so that's the second line that you see here. And then my OpenVPN is, I think it's like 69.0. Nice. And then there's one that's like 69, nice, 0.0.0-24. So please set this up the way that you need to for your network. Again, if you don't know what you're doing, go on the Discord, go on the documentation, figure it out. When you go on your router, you're going to see a lot of these IP address spaces. Like for me, it's obviously 10.0.1.x for everything. That corresponds to, again, my second line here, but just figure it out. It's not that hard. I'm going to do Control-X to save, press Y to confirm, overwrite. Let me pause my screen recorder before it bugs out, and then we'll come right back. Okay, so now that that's set up, there is one last command that you'll see in my command list, and this is more of a contingency. This happened to me one time. earlier this week when I was kind of playing around with it. And let's say that you did all that. You've set up your moonraker.conf file to allow IP addresses on your network, and you know for a fact that you did it correctly, but yet this doesn't show up. Like, you've just got a blank screen. Like, if I was to do like a bogus IP address, it's going to just sit on this where it's just loading and it's thinking, and then after a few minutes it says, I couldn't find it, right? So if you're getting that, there's a problem with your Nginx, or however you pronounce that, Nginx. And what I'm going to do is actually open up this file here, and we're going to manually check that all three of these files are populated correctly, because in my case, it was not when I used KIAUH earlier this week. The first one is going to be upstreams.conf. Let's open that guy in terminal and see what's in it. So in mine, I'm not going to go through it line by line, but you're going to want to just compare it against what's here. This looks like it's correct. The next one is common_vars.conf. So let me just do get out of this. Same thing. Nano into that. So this just has a few lines. What is it supposed to say? Yep, that looks right to me. And the last one, again, there were only three, is going to be this generic like Mainsail file here. And then we're going to compare it against this. I'm not going to waste your time by going line by line, but this looks believable. I mean, my Mainsail is working at the moment, so I'm not going to lose sleep over that. That's pretty much it. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and get out of this, and let's jump over to our Mainsail. So at the moment, we don't have any files really in place. So I'm going to go to Machine, and then at this point, simple matter of configuring your printer. So let's give it a quick test. I'm just going to do Home All. Now, my build plate is not installed, so I'm just going to use my hand to hit the Z probe here. Seems like everything's working. And we're good. So guys, there we go. Orange Pi, Klipper, no problem. Nice and stable.